that tells you nothing. Yeah? And now it's not 360 slides. It's the idea that we look at a certain topic from different angles. Technically, we have five angles, and we split the presentation in two pieces, 50-50. You'll see that later. Can you push that magic? No, Ronald, can you push that? Oh, there's our title slide. Perfect. So it's 2024. You cannot do a presentation without some Gen AI picture to start with. So this is what you get when you fire up ChatGPT and you ask for, can you give me a 360-degree business perspective on value? So that's what we got. Obviously, value is a versatile concept. So it's a broad topic, and we've tried to compress it a little into tangible elements. Personal value, business value, social value. So it's a huge topic. What we see many times is that there are people who are very capable of the technical aspects. Not so much on the value proposition or business value in general, and then the other way around, we have people who need to manage all of this, and they really struggle with the technical pieces, and that's what we're trying to connect today. More important, I'm personally convinced that technology itself has no value. It creates value when you integrate it, and finding that value chain most of the time is really the critical element. So that's what we're going to do today. So let me introduce my, should we start with the pun? So my invaluable colleague Ronald is here. So we've done a keynote together last year, and the feedback was okay. So we have got a second chance this year. So if you do something twice, it's a tradition. So great to spend the next 38 minutes with you, Ronald.
Yeah. And we also have Kostja. Kostja is the head of global technical account management. That's a job. Also my manager. So remember, this is my second chance, and my manager's on stage. We're going to try 38 minutes. Who values body and mind? Meaning this guy doesn't just work in his head all day, but is also a sports instructor at night. So if you feel a little bit lacking energy in the middle of the day, then ask him. Alright, time to do some content. So what we want to do today in this talk is to talk a little bit about Opti 360, whatever that means, and we break that down in three pieces. One is we want to introduce different types of value, because it's quite easy to say in many conversations, optimization creates value, it's super cool, value is what we need, can we create more value? What is that value? What does that look like? And we have a few examples of what that looks like in practice. And that then leads to the question, but how do we get to that value? It's easy to say, if you use a solver, then you earn more money. How do you get there? And the way to tell that story is with what we call Opti moments. So we're going to look at a random person living in Amsterdam, going through his days, and at different random moments in time, seeing moments where suddenly actually something is being optimized. The person might know or might not know, and we're going to see how does it work, why is it useful, how often do you see optimization in your daily life. Hopefully that makes you think during the rest of the event. So Opti moment is really a moment anywhere in your day or in anyone's day where something is being optimized, where optimization can or does add value, creates value. Those are really surprising moments sometimes, and we'll see many examples of those. So let's say we wake up and we pick this image, and I actually loved it, the left one, and only then I realized it's actually 11 o'clock in the morning. That's a good time to wake up. We are somewhere in Amsterdam. What do? You probably pick your phone first, and then you turn on the lights, right? And you just don't think, you just press the button and the light goes on. It's so simple. How did the energy get there? Right? Why does it just work? And why does it work immediately? And that brings us to the topic of time.
So here's the first one, and we have 5. You would probably look at this and say, okay, time is a value, okay, Captain Obvious. But it's something to think about a little longer. To be more precise, it's not necessarily time, it's reducing time. There's a nice interview, you can watch it on YouTube with Warren Buffett, and we all know it's a famous investor, so money is not his problem. And he's asked like, okay, so now that you have everything, you can buy everything, what do you do? And he said, no, you're wrong. There's something I cannot buy, and that is time. And I like this as a quote because it's something that we obviously see with our technology all the time. Time cannot be compressed. Time cannot be bought. Time is the number one limiting resource. And many KPIs that you can use to measure value, if you want, have that timing aspect. Yeah, whether it's the time to achieve something, whether it's time before or after something, time in production, time to do something. So I think it's important to take a second and keep in mind that time is a very special resource, and independent of other things you might consider valuable, time is the number one thing that you need to manage. So looking at the time aspect, so what's different when using our technology is really the most important piece for us. We have the bigger example here, again, generative AI, the latest technology which gives you actually some very interesting patterns for solar panels in the back, but that's a different story. I still like this example a lot. Energy is a real-time resource, if you want, and especially electricity, you need to generate it at the point when you also use it. And time here is the most critical piece on every scale, right? Some things are real-time decisions; they have to happen within minutes or seconds. If you think about grid operations, some stuff is planning. Markets, you usually have 15 minutes time window, and that's it. So there's no time to wait for 20 minutes. All the way up to strategic planning horizons. So, for example, in Europe, in many countries, the grid planning. So, how do we transmit? How does energy transmission look like in 20 years? To plan this, what you actually do is you emulate the whole operation. So you optimize the whole thing for the next 20 years, day by day, to see if it's feasible and whether the huge investment is worth it. Good, so that's time.
So we just woke up 11 a.m. My boss is working and waiting in the office, but I first need my coffee, because otherwise there's no point in going to the office. Let's say I want a cappuccino, so I go to my fridge, I open, and I need a fresh carton of milk. And the assumption is, when I open that, it will taste the exact same as the package that I had yesterday, right? It's milk. But I don't have a dedicated cow. It's being used for me all the time. And even if I had, it would taste different day to day. The milk is always different every day. So there's another value that's somehow useful to me as a consumer, which is the quality. It's always the same for that milk.
So obviously that's number two. So quality, what is quality? Again, if you ask ChatGPT or some other AI system, what is quality? You get a lot of answers. Most of them are not really helpful. Maybe we can agree on a definition that I really like. Quality is the distance between an expectation or a requirement and an outcome. And there's huge space. And measuring quality is also not easy. But the quality aspect is something that you have in the process, so in planning, that you have in the outcome and in the execution of a process. So finally, moving from where we need to be to where we could be. Whatever that is the key aspect here. Again, I mean, this is pretty obvious, and tons of KPIs that cover a quality aspect. We have one more picture here about the example that Ronald just mentioned. Milk is so for oil. We probably all know that oil is coming out of the ground at very different qualities, and then depending on what you have, you produce different products. The same is true for milk. So we have a really nice case study here that we created together with Fonterra. And I didn't know that, but milk is not milk. And all the milk or dairy products that you have, you want at the same or similar quality. So it's really a planning process that depends on the uncertain input that you get from your dedicated cows.
Okay, so we had coffee. it's time to go to the office, hopefully. So we could have taken the bike in Amsterdam, but we're taking the car, because it fits better with the story that we have. Electrical car, of course. It's a nightmare in Amsterdam, apparently. Did you know that every year 35 cars end up in a kennel like this? 35. I looked at the data. So we want to take the car, right? And the good thing for the people that lose their car, and hopefully they're not in the car, is those cars are produced thousands per day in extremely efficient factories. Right? They're produced at a high speed. How is that done? Because it's a huge quantity.
Yeah. So that gets us, straight to the next value. Sometimes, time, yeah, quality, okay. Quantity. So how much you can achieve in the same time. It's not necessarily achieve more with less, but achieve more in the same time. So the idea that one of the key value drivers is not just we get something done faster or nicer. It's also that you can make best use of your existing time or existing resources. So do more in the same time. And the example, can advance one slide. So the example that we really like is complex products. This is a case study that we developed together with Audi, and I've worked for a few years in the automotive industry. So cars can be highly complex products, and the main benefit when using the technology, for example, in the assembly, is throughput. So you can produce more cars in the same time, which is nothing but the fact that the technology allows you to get more done or have a higher production rate. So that's one of the aspects that make a huge difference, especially when you have products that are very, very expensive and complex.
Alright, time to leave home, time to drive to the office. The only thing is we make one more stop. We have, let's say, a family member in the hospital, and we want to make a quick stop. My boss is still waiting at the office, but I screwed up anyway with my alarm clock. So I make a quick stop, and I see people leaving the hospital, working there, that just finish their night shift. And I see people entering the hospital that just start their day shift. And the ones on the night shift, some of them are complaining a little bit like, why is she always doing the day shift while I have the night shift? Who can explain to me why that is a good prospect?
Yeah, so that leads us straight to the next value driver. Explainability. It's a big word, and it's one of the biggest challenges that you have when technology takes over. People don't like to trust black boxes. Yeah? They want reasoning, they want justification, and the technology can actually help with that. It's not that you rely on the black box doing it. It's really that you can integrate a lot of these aspects already in the decision-making process. It's not. Sometimes it's optional, so it's a nice to have. Yeah, it would be great if we could have fairness and all of these aspects. And sometimes it's regulation. You have to. There's no choice. And so this comes down to the ability that there's not just one perspective or one objective for what you're doing, but it's really the ability to add more KPIs into the process that cover whatever expandability needs for the use case. And it also gives you a powerful tool when it comes to the acceptance of such technology tools. And the obvious example, you cannot talk about mathematical optimization without this example, is workforce planning and related tasks, where a plan, a schedule is a schedule, but there's so much more to it, and we have quite a few customers also here and partners who work in that space, so I'll not talk about it for too long. But the power is not just that you can do an optimal schedule. The power is that you can do something that really, really satisfies preferences. So you make people happier by incorporating those explainability aspects like fairness, regularity, all of these things into the process.
Alright, so we finally make it to the office. Let's imagine we work at a random office at the airport, Schiphol Airport. And you have this beautiful view where you can see, what is the view I like really, where you see all the little cars moving stuff, luggage is being moved, fuel is being moved, passengers are being moved to their airplane. planes are entering, leaving, and that's not easy, right? That's not random people saying, let me park my airplane over here. That is someone taking decisions to make that all fit. But there's just so many difficult rules that the final bit of value that we can bring into the picture is handling complexity.
So we said 5, here's number 5, complexity. Complexity by itself is not a value, but the ability to handle or to master complexity. Many Gurobi customers could not do what they do without a tool that enables them to handle complexity. What typically happens, I mean, complexity is a well-known mathematical concept. But for normal people, complexity is, sometimes confused with complicated. Complexity is just the fact that there are more and more factors that you have to consider, and more connections and dependencies or interdependencies between things. And what happens most of the time when problems become more complex, people need to sacrifice something. Okay, we only have 10 minutes, so this new complexity driver, we're trying to handle it somehow. So the ability to handle complexity without sacrificing other aspects of the process is really the key value piece. And the nicest example for complexity is obviously airports. Again, Gen AI. And airports are a nice example because everything's big, everything's complex, everything's expensive. And airports and airlines in general are full of examples where complexity is the main driver, and the ability to really handle that creates a lot of value. We'll have a talk by KLM directly after this presentation. So time for a little recap.
Yeah. For the people that know the Netherlands and think this is Maduro done, I thought it too, but apparently it's AI. Okay. So we have 5 types of value, right? And we listed them here, but the fun thing is there's not one that is more important than the other. And it's not like you only pick one value for your optimization project and then that's the one you focus on. So all of those might make sense. You will see a few in every optimization project. And if you see 1 or 2 or 3 of those, when you look at something in reality that might be optimized, then it's a good fit for an optimum. Then maybe there's something optimization can bring. Now a challenge here is that you typically need people on the business side and people on the technical side. And so what we did for fun, we're both in the technical teams. The Kostja is wearing white, like all the more commercial roles in Gurobi in this event. You will see them in white. And the technical team is wearing red. But we're trying to combine those 2 things in this talk. So far it was all about let's say the why. Why does a company want to do optimization? Why would I spend any time on optimizing? And that is something where technical people sometimes struggle. They see a nice little puzzle and they want to solve it, but then someone asks, is it worth it? And you're like, don't know yet. But there's also the other side. So the people that are more on the business side, and there's plenty of people in this room that are maybe less technical than some of the others, might wonder, okay, this is all cool, value, but then how do we get there? We cannot do a full massive online course in this room, but we're going to do a real high level, again 5 steps. How do we go from a nice idea all the way to implementation? And the simplest form to explain, and we're going to do it using the Amsterdam examples, is you somehow state what your actual problem is, then you make a mathematical description of that same thing, you build something, you put it somewhere where people can use it, and then you keep refining. It's almost obvious, but there's a lot of detail to be covered there. So let's say we go back to the office, lunchtime, what do we do?
Yeah. So you finally made it.
Time for lunch.
Yeah. So and the idea here is, let's say, because it's a nice illustration for the first piece of the workflow, is you're looking to do a little sports tournament during lunch break at work. Nice. Play some whatever. What do you play in the Netherlands? Soccer, maybe. Yeah. Okay, and then you say, okay, it can't be too difficult, right? I mean, it's break, a few colleagues, let's put something together, play a few games, have some fun. Well, then you start to organize it, and you realize, availabilities, different skills, so that the teams need to be, mixed with people who are more or less skilled in in the game, and then you have referees, and you need to make sure that everything's fair, and then you have some last minute changes. So this idea of let's plan something and have some fun can quickly become something that is very difficult and challenging to organize. So this is for private purposes. If you do this at scale, and we have lots of examples where this is done also with our product, creating schedules is a difficult thing, not necessarily because of the solver or the technology itself, but everything that comes before you start to actually use it. So that's the problem statement piece. Asking the questions, what do we want, before you even start to think about technology can be one of the most challenging things, and schedules for sports is a beautiful example, right? So your requirements, people have ideas, preferences, stakeholders, priorities. So there's so much influence and so much opinion, and it's also closely related to our value explainability, because a schedule is schedule. So there's a lot of reasoning, justification that goes into schedules.
Yep. So how do we do this? This can be almost a one-liner, just like Gurobi has his purpose and his vision as one really clear sentence. You would write something that says, we want a great schedule, who plays against whom, and there's a difficulty there. But what you actually do is you're looking for three key ingredients. So one is, we do all this work, and we spend all this time and effort because we need to make a decision. If there would not be a decision making, then there's no point in automating. Right? We need a decision. And the second thing is, there is a goal. There's something that we want to achieve. One schedule is better than the other. And then there's rules that make this all difficult, because if it wasn't difficult, then you would have already solved it. So in this example, you want to decide who plays against whom. The goal is make it fair or maybe make it interesting. And the rules that make it difficult are things like availability, skill levels, etc. And you just write it down in normal language, and the rest of your company says, yeah, that looks good, let's do that.
Alright, and let's continue nowadays. Look at the next opti moment. You get a phone call, let's say from your bank. And your bank calls you and offers you a certain product, something that you might want to look at. And I mean, obviously in the middle of your day, you're like, yeah, thank you, I'll think about it, and goodbye. But it's a good question. I mean, why? I mean, the bank has probably tens of thousands of customers. Why did they call you? What did they know about you, and how did this become a marketing activity somewhere in the process? So again, if you look at this at scale, it's very close to our complexity value driver, and spending marketing budget is, and Michael can probably relate to, is a tough game. And there's complexity in it, but the core task is we have a budget to spend. And we have so many things that we could do. So how do we make a decision here in doing the right things, or using the budget in the best possible way? And this is a use case also for many of our customers. You could call it a budget constraint activity planning model. And doing this at scale, with billions of options and alternatives, is what motivates the second piece of the
Because the language that I use so far is nice, but that's English, and there's always different interpretations of that sentence. What does fair mean exactly? What does play against someone else mean exactly? There is a language that's better suited for making it really formal, really clear, no debate, and that's of course mathematics. It's what we all love, or hate. And in an example for marketing optimization, it looks a little bit like this. So you do something. Why? That's my variable, my decision. So going from a decision to a mathematical variable. And we're trying to decide, do I offer a certain product to a certain person that's sitting in the office with his cell phone? And we maximize the profit in the first line, and we have some limitations. So maybe we cannot offer too many options to Dr. Siefen, because then he doesn't listen anymore. We have a limited budget, because Michael cannot spend an infinite amount of money on the phone calls. And we want to offer every product to at least a certain amount of people to test it out, to make sure that the product is being sold. What you can do is actually make that mapping from the problem statement to the mathematics. So you see in the middle the variables, that's the decisions that we're making. You see the goal being an objective, some mathematical thing that we want to make as large or as small as possible. And you see different constraints, rules that have to be true, that we need, that we cannot violate, that we have to be careful with. Okay.
Alright, so the day continues, and you're at the end of your work day, you drive
Short
home.
day.
Short day, okay, and you drive home, and you really want to phone home quickly and rely on groceries, but phone reception isn't too good. Hey, we had to come up with a story. So, if you really look at this problem at scale, yeah, it's something that has many flavors of decision making. In this case, coverage. So the planning process of covering something with the least amount of investment. For mobile phones, you can imagine cell towers are not a cheap thing. So you really want to make sure that you have, subject to your budget, the best possible coverage. So that is closely related to our quantity value. Yeah? How can I get the maximum coverage out of a limited number? In this example. Yeah, we all know this is not greenfield planning, but it's a nice example, and it's also a nice illustration for our third piece in the workflow.
Yep. Which you actually already gave. We're also skipping the mathematics. Why? Because they're actually very similar to spending the marketing budget. Instead of covering products, we're now covering customers. Instead of having a budget for marketing, we have a budget for cell towers, and we want to maximize something like coverage. What we do now is we take mathematics, and now mathematics is not a language that your laptop understands. So now we need to translate that to instructions, to something that you can run, where you can press play. And in this case, if you use Gurobi, you get similar blocks. So you get the same three pieces. But now what you're doing is you're saying, hello Gurobi, I have a puzzle. Step one, I need certain decisions. That's the first block. Step two, there are certain rules that you have to take into account. And step three, here is my objective function. Please make this formula as big as possible. And the final line is where the magic happens. You just ask, give me the solution. So you see that you go from English to mathematics to, in this case, Python, but we're getting closer to something that can run on a machine.
So your cell phone didn't work. You drove home and you found nothing in the fridge. So you decided to order something. That's our next opti moment, and it's bloody easy right nowadays. You just take your phone, you pick something. Sometimes you don't even choose the restaurant. You're like, okay, I want some nice Asian food today. This is what we want. Go, and then things happen in the back end, and that's where the magic starts. So we have the restaurant getting the order. They need to estimate the time when it will be ready. You need a driver, maybe a flexible and dynamic assignment system. And all of that happens at scale. Think about cities that are really large with hundreds of restaurants and thousands of drivers or delivery agents in general. So the critical piece when we come back to value is really time. You want your food, you want it hot, you want it fresh, and you want it exactly when you expect it. So we like this example because it's a nice illustration of the fourth element of our workflow. After we're actually done with the software implementation, the whole thing has to run.
Yeah, many people love building those first three steps, and then they're like, I've got my little Python script, it runs, I did the magic, right? We're all happy. But the person at home cannot order his food yet, or they can order, but then they wait and nothing arrives. So what you need to think about in that fourth step is how do we deploy that software somewhere and make it accessible? Where accessible might be you yourself running the same script, but it might also be your colleagues who have no clue about optimization, or Python in general, or it might be your customers at home. And if you're talking scale, then suddenly we're not just talking about move your little script from one machine to one other machine. No, we're talking about 20, 30, 40 machines, and they run containers, one for every big city in, for example, India is where we're using this. And all those containers, every 30 seconds, keep solving the same puzzle for all the new orders that come in, so that people know when is my driver delivering my food. It's very technical, it's not the part that many mathematical people like thinking about, but this is crucial. If if you do the first 3 steps nicely, and then you mess up your deployment, the value is not going to be there.
Good. So the day is coming to an end, and you decide, well, let's listen to some music, and then something wonderful happens. For some reason, your favorite streaming platform is playing the exact right music that you really enjoy, and it's the perfect experience for your evening. We had one final value here to map, which is quality. And that's exactly what you get here, the fact that you can use technology to make these, in this case, recommendations very close to the data, very close to people's objective, and that makes a nice end of a day.
It does. And the same applies to this whole methodology. The final step is that it doesn't stop at the end of the day. The final step is that it actually starts again tomorrow. For the streaming service, they get new data every day about whether people like the song and if they keep playing it or they quit. Right? So they can keep fine-tuning their implementation to make it better. Why is that important? Well, there's a few reasons. So one reason is you need feedback. So you want to deploy this whole system early. Because based on feedback, you can make it better. So the whole assumption we build something perfect and then we forget about it, that just doesn't work. You need to deploy, get feedback, and do it again. Another piece is you also have to take into account that even if you have the perfect model and deploy that and everyone's happy today, in a few months from now, life will be different. Suddenly we all listen to different types of music. Suddenly my aircraft cannot fly over a certain region anymore. Suddenly the objectives of the company have changed. Right? So even if the model is finished now, it might not be finished later. And the final reason, something goes wrong. The final reason is that if you assume that it has to be perfect, that will also change your mindset. You will keep working on your model forever, because it has to be perfect, before you deploy. And we think it's much healthier if you just make a first version, try it out in practice, and then keep iterating.
Good. So what we've tried with this keynote is to make it as simple as possible. So we have the value piece, which hopefully is a useful framework when you talk about use cases, because it gives you a very clear structure, something that you can look at and really think it through, and then really come up with a strong value proposition by really thinking through this structure. And also the workflow piece is a very simple, again, not easy, simple structure that can give a good answer to the how do we get there question. We'll see lots of these opti moments in the course of the next 2 days. That's actually, you can even take a selfie with an opti moment downstairs, and we have little opti moments on the tables. It's something that it's a little bit like a joke. If you do this job for a long time, then essentially everything looks like an opti moment to you. So it's a combination of the ability to see it, it's an opportunity, and then the ability to do it. And hopefully by connecting both sides, that gives you a powerful framework to maximize value in every opti moment. Okay. Final slide. So this is a keynote, but we need something to end this properly. Any idea?
Oh, yeah. Can we do? We just ask ChatGPT again.
Again?
Yeah. If we do something, something emotional, positive.
Moment.
Sunset on the beach.
It needs to be more pathetic. Like it needs a meaning. We need the aspect of time and well.
Okay.
Yeah, that looks nice.
Good.
Is it? Yeah, that's okay. Nice. But it's not complete yet, I think.
Can we do? Can we add like one final, really bad, pathetic quote to make it all stick?
So ChatGPT again. Okay, so we need value. We need moment. Beautiful. Right? Sometimes you will never know the value of a moment until it becomes a memory. So that's it. Thank you very much.